Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the MAGIA Mindset. Today's guest is going to talk about the specifics of his coaching style and system of play. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome our guest on the show again, Houston Dynamo assistant coach, Omid Namazi. Roll the intro. Omid John, thank you for making the time. I know who would have thought from our last previous episode till now, we would still be in the pandemic. We are, but it is something that is ongoing. I think still nothing is for sure for when start dates are. I think adjustments will be made if needed, but we have to be, as coaches, as athletes, adaptable in these unique times. So I know your plate is full, and I know you're being totally active during this time. I truly appreciate it for putting on the time to get on the show.
It's my pleasure, and I appreciate you having me on. As you said, the pandemic is still going. However, I think people are now starting to adapt and make it somewhat of a normal situation until hopefully everybody's vaccinated and we get to more of a normal life. But today we actually found out that at least for our season, we know a start date, which will be April 17th. And that gives us sort of a backdrop of what we need to do as far as planning and programming and being ready for that start date.
That's huge. I mean, it's crazy because USL Championship won't start until the second division in America till May. So it's insane of the adaptability of making those happen. What I wanted to kind of transition, I know it's been unique time with this the coronavirus. We had two key players in our Persian community pass away from the coronavirus, and they've been significant pieces in the world of football for the country, in Mehdad Minavan and Ansari. I want to kind of touch base with you, since you were within the world of football in Iran, had good relationships with them as well, to kind of touch light on what kind of human beings were they, what kind of impact did they have on society for the nation as well.
Yeah. First of all, I my condolences go to their families, and I pray that they're doing okay as their families go through this tough times. It's a very sad time. I got to know both players, both people, while I was coaching in Iran, especially with the national team. And specifically Mehrdad Minavan, who was a former national team player, had played in the World Cup. And from time to time, we would invite former World Cup players to come into camp and talk to the players. And Mehrdad was one of those guys that came, and he was so jovial and so funny, and he made everybody laugh. He made everybody smile around him, and to see him perish the way he did was very sad. Ali Ansarian was also a big figure, a player who played for both the top two teams in Iran, Persepolis and Esteghlal. Was very popular in people's minds, and he embodied toughness. He embodied fairness in the game. And then he transitioned also into acting, which made him even more popular. I also had some interactions with him, although not as much as I did with Mehrdad. But Ali Ansarian was a very genuine guy. I think that's the perfect word for him. So it was a sad time, for them to go within a week. But these are the times that we're living in, and we have to be very careful and really take care of ourselves and people around ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we forget, because as athletes, we're we're in a sport, and at times people look at us as invincible because of the amount of tolerance our body has. There was a good side story someone said of Ali Ansarian is he finished the 90-minute game, and he's like, the 90 minutes is up.
Yeah.
Man, my heart can go forever. I want to go again. I want to get that going. And then they fast forwarded to the time he's in the hospital. He's like, it's so hard. I have nothing. Like, it's hard to breathe. It's my breath is
Yeah.
getting away. And those are sad moments, and reminds us how precious. I mean, that's what I think this time has been, how precious life is. And at times we're at an age of 21, 25, and we're at the top of our game as players. We can go on for days. We feel like nothing in the world can affect us. As we get older and older, we're getting to certain moments of life as we realize how precious every single moment is. And I think the thing I think we can take from this is, maximize every moment, prioritize
Absolutely.
what the priorities are, family, beliefs, anything it is, just those moments of sometimes not being active but at peace is so valuable as well, because especially in the American society, we're always at fast forward. We're always trying to make an income. We're always trying to bring in the money, and we lose the moments where with our family, loved ones around us. So hopefully we can kind of reflect on that in a positive way. But I truly appreciate you sharing light on that. And I kind of want to transition now on our main topic, which is coaching style. And
Mhm.
before we get into the specifics of it, I wanted to kind of touch base on positions you've had in
Yeah.
different environments. You're a coach that have been in so many different environments, different cultures, dealing with different players, where obviously coaching style, as people today are saying, is it's based on the player personnel you're having as well. And a coach, how do we adapt? I wanted to first start out here in America. And I want to kind of touch base on the female side first before we transition on the men's side.
Yep.
Is as a coach, how was setting up your coaching style um, within the female game at the highest level? At the highest
Yeah.
level, how did you adapt that? What was the priorities, and what was the goals to achieve for your season?
Yeah. So my first time coaching women was back in 2001, 2002 with the San Diego Spirit of the old WUSA. And it's an interesting question that you ask, and the way I feel a coach comes up with a philosophy or a style of play. Yeah, a lot of times it depends on the players that coach has as at his use and what type of players they he has. We I had just taken over San Diego, and I had watched some of their games from the previous season, and I had realized that they were deficient in both the attack and defending, to be quite honest. And they had some very good players. They had four national team players, but yet they were not getting to the playoffs in the first 2 years, and they were not performing at a level that they should have been performing. So I kind of looked at the personnel and thought, okay, I have Joy Fawcett, who at the time was the best center back in the women's game, and I felt if I could use her as a libero sort of player, sweeping everything in behind the other two marking backs, and at those times it was a little bit different. Systems of play were a little different. When you played a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, usually you had one sweeper and then two marking backs who marked the other team's forwards man to man, and that's the system that we use. So that's the philosophy that I created for that particular team because of the personnel we had. We went with the 3-5-2 formation, and it really fit the personnel, and we were able to have a lot of success throughout the season, make the playoffs, and we were really, I would say, 30 seconds away from reaching the finals, where just by a personal, an individual mistake, we gave up a goal, and we gave away the chance to get into the finals. But that's how I, came up with that style of play or that formation for that particular team because of who I had. And I feel like wherever I've been able to adapt to the players that we have at use, and be able to put them in positions where they can succeed the most. And when we talk later on, we'll talk about other teams that I've coached and what other systems of play or formations I've used. But in the women's game, and it was quite funny because when I first took over the team and I decided to go with three in the back, everybody told me three in the back would never work in the women's game. It had never been experienced before, experimented with before, and it wouldn't work. So I thought differently. I thought, with who I had, we could put that philosophy to work, put that style of play to work, and it really paid off. We played a good style of football. We were attacking. In defense, we were more solid. We could have been a lot better, but that was the personnel that I had, and I had no choice to play those players. So that was sort of how I came out. I came out with that way of playing for that team.
That's fantastic. Want to transition now to Iran and kind of we'll start out as the assistant coach to Hakpur with the Steel Azin, because I think that's a unique situation because at that time too, you guys had some very massive superstars. And I think incorporating a system and playing style with very, like the Legionnaires at the time, influential and strong players is one, they're also at the ages that they are. How do you incorporate that system? What are the priorities? Is a system built around certain players, or do you try to incorporate youth within it? If we can go into that setup, because I think it was a very unique setup you had with Mohamed Khakfour.
Yeah, Steel Azin was probably the toughest team to sort of come up with a way of playing. You had a team that was assembled of stars of every other team and put together in one team. And they all had their own ideas and ways of playing, and it was very difficult. You had Ali Karimi, you had Freydun Zandi, Mehdi Madavikia, you had Siavash Akbarpur. All these players were stars before they came there for their own team. And for them to come in and coexist within a team with the others was very difficult. We had Mohamed Golami, who at the time was a top striker. So I think the biggest challenge was not so much figuring out the style of play, but for them to buy into one goal and one way of playing, because everyone had sort of their own way of playing or their own way of thinking about the game. And quite frankly, it never worked. It was, for me, when I look back at it, it was an impossible project. You certainly had certain players that could have been of use, but then certain players we really needed to move on and replace them with younger players who would buy into the system and sort of help out with some of the older players that we wanted to keep and complement those older players. But we didn't, obviously in Iran, you don't get the results. They want to make changes really quick. So we didn't get the chance to actually put our own squad. We were handed a squad halfway through the season, and we did the best we can. Unfortunately, Hakpur was let go, and then Yavari came in, and I remember the last 8 games that Yavari was there, we tied one game and lost the rest of them. And even then, I thought results could have been better, but obviously Alvari had come in, and I had never worked with him, and he had his own ways, and his own ways did not sit in well with a bunch of veteran players. He was very much of a dictator and wanted things done a certain way, and nobody was playing for him. And you could see it in training sessions, you could see it in games. It just wasn't a very good experience. But you know, from bad experiences like that, you learn a lot. You learn that maybe your team should not be assembled of everybody being a star. Maybe you need a couple stars complemented by a bunch of soldiers and workers. So that was a learning process for me as well in my coaching career.
No, I mean that's huge. And I want to transition to your first kind of head coaching position at the highest level in Iran before
Yeah.
we go into the national team duties and
Yeah.
how the national team is a different game. But before we move there, you mentioned Ali Karimi.
Mm-hmm.
And Ali Karimi, I think for a lot of the Persian, maybe the players that people that outside of the Persian community don't know, he was kind of like Iran's Maradona. He was Iran's
Mm-hmm.
Ronaldinho. He was the wizard, the magician in
Yeah.
his prime. Unfortunately, injuries have to play a role in certain things, but obviously in his prime, I think we haven't seen a player that special. That's special. I think there's players that are obviously are playing at leagues and stuff, but I'm talking about he really put a smile on the entertainment values faces. I mean, he was that special. You working on the coaching staff and working up with a player like that. The reason I'm trying to touch base on it, what are his key qualities? How strong was his personality? But also, when you have a player like that in his prime or a little bit younger, how do you try to build a system for that? To complement that kind of player.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, extremely talented player, probably the most talented player Iran has ever had. Although I think, and many people have said this, and I've got a very good relationship with him today, and I feel as if he had let's compare him with Ali Daei, and Ali Daei was another player who obviously the huge name in Iran and top goal scorer ever for international football. If he had Ali Daei's mentality, meaning you know living and dying football and really being focused on his craft, I think Karimi could have been easily one of the best players in the world, even. Um, but for Ali Karimi, football was just just another hobby, and he knows it. He'll tell you that today, but at that time he wasn't realizing it. Um, he was loved by his teammates, great guy to be around. Obviously, a very creative player who also could do it on both sides of the ball. I don't know if you know, but Ali Karimi at times for Purse Police played as a center back, as a sweeper, and defensively he was strong. He was very powerfully built, um, quick as anything, off the dribble, so he could glide past players. Um, Really a complete player, strong in the air, great shot on the dribble. Like you said, he was a magician. Um, so having a player like that is having, it's luxury, really. Now you got to figure out how to best use them. And, a player like Ali Karimi today, you would probably use him as a number 10, maybe in a 4-2-3-1 system, just behind the lone striker, and give him the freedom to sort of roam around the field, find the pockets where he can receive the ball, turn and attack the defenders. He was best when he was receiving balls in between lines and able to run at defenders. So again, if I would have had a team today and I wanted to incorporate an Ali Karimi type player, that's how I would best use them in that role.
Fantastic. And now, kind of transitioning to your first head coaching role, um, I want to kind of get into that.
Yeah.
What situation were you put in, and the situation you were put in as a coach? Um, we can even discuss the time frame you had and what was the style you were trying to incorporate, and kind of seeing progression, and if the progressions were happening, what were the qualities you were looking in the analytics to see those progressions happening. So if we
Mhm.
can get into detail in how
You're
that's
talking about Zobahan, right? Yeah.
Zobahan.
Yeah, my time at Zobahan was interesting because I had been approached to go and take over the team for a couple years, which I had turned down because of my situation here and where I was. At the time, I was coaching with the soccer for U.S. Soccer, and I was very happy in what I was doing. But then there came a time where I felt like I wanted to take the next step and get into club coaching. And Zoban provided me with an opportunity to really put my stamp on a team. And I really believed that I had the support from management to be able to slowly develop a culture, develop a style of play, a philosophy, all the way from the youth teams up to the senior team. So I went there with that sort of understanding, and from the very get go, I try to develop a culture where everybody comes in and they look at this as, obviously it's their job. You're getting paid good money, and you got to go out there and perform. So they needed to act as professionals, train like professionals, and obviously game days, go out and perform and get the results. Unfortunately, in Iran, that environment does not exist. Players do not act professionally, and I'm not talking in general. I'm talking a good percentage of players. They don't take care of themselves the way they need to. Their nutrition is not great. They don't train the way they're supposed to. So it's very difficult to create that culture that you want. But I tried my best, and I felt that even though it didn't last very long, I left a legacy there with certain things like nutrition, what to eat, what not to eat, how close to the game you should eat, what type of food you should eat, how you should train a couple days before the game, how you should train the day before the game. Those things were never really looked at seriously by other coaches in Iran. I mean, uh, football today is a science, and unfortunately, our coaches have been isolated from the rest of the world. They can see things on the internet, but I don't think that many of them put the time into doing that. They can watch games on TV, and you know, just watching the games does not tell you how to prepare the team to play in that way. So, um, and I have to say, we have a lot of very talented coaches. They're very smart, but they're not up to date with the different methodologies of training, nutrition, and everything that surrounds the game. So, um, I tried as far as style of play, I try to, based on the personnel that we had a couple fast guys that were wingers, and we had brought in a Honduran player, tall, lanky, very good in the air. In the past, his hold up play was good. What we had seen on video. So I decided to go with a 4-3-3 system, where we push our outside backs forward, both of them at the same time. We keep our defensive center midfielder back to counter the other team's counter, and not to allow the counters to develop. But we attack with numbers. And I believe in my time there in Zoban, we actually played some of the best football that was demonstrated in Iran's league. But for various reasons, whether it was injuries, not having the players that I had promised that I was going to get, um, some really bad refereeing, and I'm not one to really ever complain about refereeing, but there was a few games, I can say 5 or 6 games, that we really got hurt by refereeing. One in particular never leaves my mind. I mean, our player in the 90th minute of the game, 0-0, gets chopped down. If you saw the highlight, you would just scratch your head as to how the referee does not call a penalty on that. Anyway, so we had some bad calls going our way. So we didn't get the results we wanted to, but we were playing some good football, and I felt that with the addition of a couple pieces at midseason, we could have taken the next step and really, really moved up the rankings, or moved up the table in the league. But that opportunity was never given. I was there for 11 games, and then they decided that they wanted to make a change. Is that my preferred style of play? Yes, I like an attacking style. I like a style where you're on the front foot, you play vertical, you get numbers forward, but you also have some sort of balance. But as far as formation, and the formation that I used in Zoban, which was a 4-3-3, that could easily be adapted to a 4-2-3-1 by just inverting your midfield, playing with one holding as opposed to two holding midfielders. But if I have the personnel, and if I was to coach a team, again, if I had the personnel that I'm looking for, I really would be looking for again, a style of play that's attacking, that's on the front foot, but with a formation that plays three in the back, 3-4-3 formation. I don't know if you have a chance to pull up any of those slides, but if you go to those slides, I can sort of explain what my preferred formation and style of play would be.
Which one do you want us to pull up?
The very first one, the first image.
Perfect.
As you can see in this image, again, my preferred formation, if I had the personnel, would be to play with three in the back, and then four across the middle and three on top. But the three on top are sort of positioned where the 7 and 11 would tuck inside and create an overload in the midfield. So they would be playing in between lines, and with the addition of 10 and 8 would create sort of a square, but with them being a little bit further open, and finding those gaps where they can receive the ball. And my aim would be to take control of the game by keeping possession of the ball, being able to play vertical in between lines, and then the width would come from my outside wingbacks, the 2 and the 3, which have the freedom to go, but also they need to come back. In this formation, the 7 and 11 are players that have to have the capacity and the ability to run with speed and try to exploit the channels where from middle, when you have possession and you play the ball wide, let's say you play the ball wide to the number 2. The number 7 at this time makes a diagonal run towards the corner flag into that open space and opens up the middle for the 2 to be able to either play the ball into 9 directly or for the 11 who slides across into the middle. So you have different options, but you're able to create this overload in the middle of the field. But from there, the number 7, by making that diagonal run, can get in behind their outside back, because their outside backs are usually now concerned about my wing backs. They're pushed very high, the 2 and the 3. So I've seen this obviously executed. In fact, there was a team in the MLS that a couple games used this system, and I really enjoyed watching them. We've trained our team to play this way. We weren't quite comfortable to use it in a game, but this next year we might actually go to this formation and use it in certain games that we think would be useful. But from here, so this is our formation. In the middle third of the game, third of the field, this is the way we look. Now, if you go to the next image, the second image, it would show how we would look in the attacking half of the field. And as you can see here in the attacking half of the field, the 2 and the 3 are pushed up high, almost level with our 3 forwards. And there's a lot of interchanges of positions where the 7 can drop in and the 2 can go, or vice versa. The 2 can slide in, the 7 can come wide. The 9 has the ability to drop in and receive balls from the 10 and 8. Great balance and great ability to exploit the holes in the defensive line, because there's literally 5 players across the back line that the other team has to worry about. And then defensively as well, in this system or in this formation, you're able to counter press if you lose possession of the ball, because you still have 5 players behind the ball. You can counter press and try to win it. And now you have players that are already in position to be goal dangerous. And I really feel this causes a lot of issues for teams that play with 4 across the back. And most teams do that. Most teams are playing 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. I feel this system, with the width that you have and then the players that you have inside, overloads that you create in the middle of the field, can create a lot of problems for the opposition. Now, the interesting thing about this is the transition to defending. Now, if you lose the ball and you have to go all the way back and defend, if you pull up that third image, I can show how we set up defensively. So as you see in this image, again, now we've retrieved all the way back to defend our goal. And you can see the 7 and 11 that were tucked into the middle in the attack now slide out. This is very different than, the old system where you used to tell your players to play wide and then tuck in the middle. 7-11 actually in the attack, they're tucked in the middle. They're playing in the holes and in those half spaces. But then when you retrieve to defend, they get wide and they defend the wide areas. And you have 5 across the back, which really gives you a chance to take away anything that the opposition can throw at you. So you have one-on-one matchups with the wingers, with the other team's wingers, with your 2 and the 3, and you still have 3 players centrally to be able to defend the box. And you have 4 across the middle, which with good organization and good pressure cover and balance can really take away those half spaces that we try to exploit. And the 9 is just there shadowing the play from one side of the field to the next. And we try to lock it in to one side with the 9. For example, if the ball is at the left back's feet of the other team, the 9 and the 7 and the 8 try to lock it on that side, and everybody sort of shifts across. And now we try to win the ball, and then we try to counter from there. With this formation and this way of playing, I feel you're balanced in a way where in attack you can create a lot, but also in defending deep, you can take away anything that the opposition can throw at you. So we've gone from a 3-4-3 in the attack to a 4-5-1 in defending. This is a system that currently at Chelsea, Thomas Tuchel is using to great success so far. 2 games or 3 games he's played, I think they've won all of them. And I really like the ideas behind using this system of play and this formation. So again, depending on the personnel you have, and you have to have the right players. Your wing backs have to have big engines, being able to get up and down the 2 and the 3 I'm talking about. The 7 and 11 are the same, more creative, more players that are able to play in those half spaces and being able to turn and run at defenders. And the 10 and 8s are the connectors. And then your 9 has to be one that's mobile, one that can stretch the field, can make runs towards corner flags, can get in behind defenders. If you have those type of players, I would love to try to instill this system of play with this formation, with the next job I have as a head coach.
No, that's huge. That's huge. Since we got this kind of system set up and play, kind of touching base on a few things. Let's just go fast forward in your current position right now with the Houston Dynamo within the MLS. Yeah. Obviously, MLS is a different league than what we were talking about in the Persian Gulf Pro League. So different setup, obviously more structure in that sense, more different kind of resources you have, higher end. But I'm saying you're getting the personnel you have, current personnel. So you're already day in, day out, getting ready for preseason programming. How do you guys implement this system? How do you start educating them? And if your players, say there are some talented players that it takes them longer to grasp the concept that your technical staff needs to, what do you do in evaluating? You're like, he's not getting it right now. We can't incorporate that. We're on a time frame of seeing how they're meshing in. How do you start putting this that's on a board and the player personnel to start to put it in play and seeing if they are able to put it to exactly the way you envision it?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's work on the field. It's work off the field through video and animation. So we present the players with what we want to do, on the field, and as far as our way of playing, through some video that we might clip from other teams that are using the same system. But then we also use animation to show them exactly their roles in this system and how their movement around the field is going to be. And then you try to take that outside on the pitch and you try to incorporate everything you do in training to sort of mirror what you want to do with this system of play. So again, it's not something that you could instill within your team overnight, but it's something that, over the course of maybe a preseason, a good 4 to 6 weeks, you can get every player to understand their roles and responsibilities within this system and to be able to execute. Now, having said that, with the Houston Dynamo, we're not thinking about this as our default style of play. We're looking at 4-3-3 mainly and 4-2-3-1. But I can tell you, if you go back, are we able to go back to the first image?
Yes, we are. Let me bring that up.
Yeah. So if you pay attention to this image, this is very, very closely matched to a 4-3-3. And why do I say that? So if you look at today's football, let's say Champions League football, you watch Man City play, you watch Liverpool play, most teams split their 2 center backs and they bring their defensive midfielder or their number 6 in between the 2, which is the same thing we have here, right? And then they have their 8 and 10, and then they have their outside backs, which nowadays the outside backs are pushed high and they get into the attack. And then you have your 3 forwards. This is very much the way Liverpool looks in their attack with Sadio Mane, with Mohamed Salah and Firmino. And then, Robertson and whoever's on Trent on the right side, they look very much the same. Now they play a 4-3-3 system, but at the end of the day, it really is most teams end up playing with three across the back when they're in the attack, two in the middle, and five players that are in the attack. So this could be also done in the 4-2-3-1 system, where you have, you know, um, your outside backs high. You split the center backs. You bring one of the defensive midfielders back, and you still have the same shape. So they very much mirror each other nowadays. These formations and these styles of play are very similar. I just like the fact that when you defend, as we demonstrated in the last image, the 2 and 3 drop to make a uh, 5-man back line, and then the 7 and 11 slide wide to make a 4 across the middle, which gives you really, really good block to defend with 9 players. Obviously, your number 9 or your center forward is there to help as well, but it's very difficult to try to penetrate 9 players, especially if the players understand their roles and responsibilities. Who takes the wide areas? Who takes the central areas? So again, no different than a 4-3-3. This is what you have on right now. Could easily be interpreted as a 4-3-3. There's the 6 moves up into midfield once the ball goes into the attacking half. You have your 10 and 8. You have your outside backs, and then you have your wingers, which get wide in the 4-3-3 system. And so it's very similar. I just like the fact that in transition you can play with more players behind the ball and really make it difficult for the other team to penetrate your block.
No, fantastic. I think we talked about possibly your next head coaching position. I wanted to put a hypothetical, and we can take it however we may. Let's say Omid Namazi got hired as the Real Madrid head coach.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of put this out there that with the players you have right now, based on the players, what kind of system would you play in that? Would you then try to transition and bring a certain amount of players? And let's just say there is a 1.5-year contract that you're set on. You're set on a contract. Win or lose, you're set on that contract to finish it out. There is no termination clause. You're going to be playing that 1.5 years. How would you incorporate your system of play? Would you start out young, and are you able to incorporate what you want? If we can get into details of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, age is not a huge issue with me as far as players are at a level where they can perform. Obviously, the tasks that they've been given. For example, in this system, we talked about the number 9 being mobile and having some pace. So if you have that, it doesn't matter if the player is 30 years old or 23 years old. So age is not really a huge factor for me. The younger, obviously, we are throughout the season. We could benefit from being fresh. More so than an older team. So I would try to incorporate, a mixture of young with old with experience. But for me, the most important thing is team speed. I honestly, in today's game and how transitional the game has become, having players who can cover ground, having players that have pace to get forward, to get in behind defenders, having defenders who can recover when they get beat, is very important. So I would choose players with a lot of physical capacity, with strength and pace, who can also play. Because let's not forget, I like to play. I like to keep possession. I like to attack, and you don't do that unless you have quality within your team. So you talked about Real Madrid. The system that I just spoke about could easily be instilled within that team. They have the personnel to play that way. Obviously, I'm not the coach now, so they play, whatever they play 4-3-3.
Which image are we talking about? If we can bring it up, which image?
The very first image.
This one right here.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the personnel they have. I mean, this could easily be instilled within Real Madrid's squad. Given healthy Sergio Ramos and Varane, and you have another center back. You could put Toni Kroos and Modric in the middle. You can
if we break down number specific, everyone's healthy. Which players would you put where, and what's the flow of it?
Yeah, I would put Ramos as a number 6, Varane as a number 4. I'm not sure who's playing for Ramos right now. I haven't seen Real Madrid lately since Ramos has been hurt. But I would play another center back as a number 5. The 8 would be Modric. The 10 would be Kroos. Benzema would be 9. Vinicius could be the 11. The 7 could be the young kid that came through their academy. I can't remember his name right now. Help me there if you can, Shawn.
Vasquez, or is it Rodri?
Rodri, yeah. And then their outside backs that they have currently, Marcelo, and
Carvajal.
Yep. That's how I would go with their team. And I feel they have the firepower to score goals, to keep possession in the middle of the field, to really push the other team back, and then use their width. Because in this way of playing, you have a lot of width, but you also have a lot of players down the middle. So you can really exploit the holes everywhere in the attack. And they have speed to transition and to get behind the ball as well, and to create that 5 across the back with 4 in front of them and 9, which would be Benzema in front of them if they wanted to defend inside their half.
Based on what you observed on Benzema, what is his key qualities and where does he play best? Is it with his back to goal? Would you want him to drop into the pockets where a 10 would pick up the ball? How would you want him to kind of maximize his potential?
Yeah, I think Benzema is a very underrated player. For me, he's been one of the best center forwards in the world for a long time, and he doesn't get enough credit for it. He can drop in as a 10, receive the ball, link up. He can get in behind players. He has good pace. He can turn on a defender with one touch of the ball. He can turn. Obviously, he's really good in the box and in and around the box. He can pick his spots and score goals. The way he plays now, I would use him the same way. I mean, he's to me, he's a prototypical number 9. I really like the way he plays. In fact, I was talking to Tab Ramos, I think it was today or yesterday, about his qualities and how helpful to his team he is. Because again, he's one who can drop in the middle and create an overload and receive balls with his back to the goal. And he's comfortable doing that with players draped on his back. He's one that can stretch the field with his pace. He's good on the dribble. There's really nothing he can't do. He's a good, complete player. I really like Benzema as a player, and I would use him the same way that he's being used now by Zidane.
No, fantastic. It's funny how we were talking about complete player as a number 9. You guys obviously went. You guys went against LA Galaxy when Zlatan was around, correct?
No, he had already been gone.
He already been left. I mean, but when we even observed that from a distance, one of the things that obviously you observe from world-class players as they're getting older, and there's an exception of the certain few, you're like, they're still performing. They're still effective. Right now, if we just talk about three at that age that stands out is the Messi, the Cristiano Ronaldo, and the Zlatan Ibrahimovic. How at their age they're still being effective. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to game intelligence. I mean, obviously, the physical abilities sort of diminish. You're not as fast, you're not as strong, but you actually are as smart, maybe smarter, because you gain experience and you become more sophisticated as a player. Um, you mentioned Messi, and Messi Messi could play, for me, he could play another 10 years if he wanted to. People think, he's done. For me, he could play another 10 years. Why? Because Messi plays at the last line. He plays up against the last line, up against the defenders where there's pressure, there's people, hitting him at his Achilles all the time when he's receiving the ball. Just imagine if Messi dropped one line and played in the middle of the midfield and had more room and had less pressure on him. He could pick any pass he wanted to still and be very effective. Messi, if he wanted to, this is all, it comes down to the mentality. If he wanted to, don't ever doubt that he could play. He could be the guy starting your attack, from your back line, receiving the ball and starting your attack, right, like a number six. Obviously, you don't look at him as a ball winner, but I used with the national team, with the U.S. national team, I used Jonathan Gonzalez, who's now in Monterrey. He's not a prototypical ball winner, but you can give him a ball and he will not use it in the middle of the field, and he can start your attack from there. So there's two ways of thinking about that number six. The number six could be just a ball winner who's just tackles everywhere. He slows down the counterattack. Or he's a guy, if you have an attacking team, who builds your attack from the back. And I feel Messi can do that. And that comes down to intelligence. He knows where to receive the ball, the angle of approach to receive the ball and be able to play balls forward. Another player with who's up there in age who can still do it is Busquets. The intelligence of Busquets gives him that ability to play at a high level still, and be able to perform week in and week out.
One of the last things I want to kind of get into, because it's very exciting buzz that we haven't had for a while, and it's kind of setting up for the 2026 World Cup. It's our U.S. national team. What an amazing, and Omid, you were in the swing of it with Tab in the youth, and you saw these kids and where they're progressing now with the Gio Reyna, with the Pulisic, with the Tyler Adams, with the Weston McKennie. There's so much young talents that are key players at a young age for big clubs that we haven't had like this. I want to kind of, when you're seeing that from the outside now, from working in the MLS, to kind of wrap us up, is where do you see our game heading to in the US, as well as what's the system, obviously that you kind of see kind of coming into fruition? If, obviously I don't want you to play the role of other coaches in that sense, but obviously as we always play with it, man, if everyone's healthy, we would plug this here, plug this there. That would set up for what the US has going on.
No, yeah. I mean, I give a lot of credit to Tab, not just because I work with him and I have a very good relationship with him. We're good friends, but because, what he did in the last 10 years and while he was with U.S. Soccer, is phenomenal. And to his credit, a lot of the players that are coming through now, playing at Juventus, playing in Schalke, playing at Red Bull, Leipzig, all over Europe, really. PSV Eindhoven, Ajax, some of the top clubs in the world, Chelsea, obviously with Pulisic. A lot of it has to do with his planning an organization where he brought in coaches that he believed in. And he really told everyone, me included, that, hey, we got to teach these kids and we got to develop them in a way where they go out and they fear no one. It doesn't matter whether we're playing France, we're playing Honduras, or we're playing Holland. We go out there with the same mentality that we can beat anyone. And I think, at least I know the few years that I coached the U18 national team, I basically told the players that, look, when we play the Frances and the Russias and, some of the top youth teams in the world, don't look at them like, they're world beaters and you can't even come close. They're the same players. You just got to go out and compete. The biggest thing for us was to compete. We felt like the Development Academy had done a great job of developing players at a high level, creating good environments within clubs. And the American player had become a lot more technical. Then there was this element that was lacking, and that element was the competitiveness, the wanting to go out and win every game, regardless of the opponent. And we really try to instill that mentality and attitude within the players. And I remember we played with the U18s. We played a tournament in the Czech Republic, and Czech Republic had a really good team. They were all 6'2", 6'3", with good feet. But our players went out there, the Paxton Palmacals of today, Nick Tattague, who is at Schalke, some of the other players. Brandon Servania just got moved to the Bundesliga in Austria. We had some very good players. They started believing in themselves that they can compete, and they went out and we won the tournament. And then you had Weston McKennie. I saw Weston McKennie just after he was the last cut from the U17 World Cup team that was coached by Richie Williams. And I ended up coaching that group for a short period of time right after that World Cup. And Weston McKennie's head was down. And at the time, he was more of a 10. He was very attacking minded. And I told him, look, just because you didn't make the World Cup, it's not the end of the world. You're young. You're only 16. You got the world in front of you, a lot of time in front of you. Just make sure that you're working hard every day. You come with the right mentality and you compete. And then, the next cycle that he was in was with the U19s with Brad Friedel, who was the coach. And I went to their first camp with Brad. And I remember Weston McKennie in the tournament in Spain was the best player in the tournament. And from there on, he took off. His trajectory was unbelievable. In fact, it was during one of our U20 camps that a call came that he's being he's being bought out by Schalke, and he left in the middle of the camp. But these kids are good players, and we have a lot more. The base, maybe, let's say 15, 20 years ago, we had 20 good players at each age level. Now we have 50. We have 60 good players. So the probabilities are even higher now that some of these players are going to make it to the top clubs in Europe and playing at the highest level in world football.
Omid, and it's so refreshing to hear. I mean, obviously having coaches like yourself, Tab Ramos, when that conversation, so simple that you had with Weston, but it's so important. It could be the flip side to it. Someone would be like, hey, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you can't make it. And from there, he shuts down. He doesn't become who he is today. But a little bit of that talk says, you know what? Coach says, I'm still young. You're right. I am young, and I'm not going to stop working at it. I'm going to work harder. That puts a fire in me. But that belief and that proper education, I think our coaches should get the credit as well within our US soccer umbrella as well. As we're producing this, there's a reason the opportunities are given, the growth is happening, and it's exciting to see what 1994 did for US, what
Mhm.
2026 was most likely will do, knock on wood,
Yeah.
because it's very exciting to see. And I think just the setups of what we're trying to do, it's heading in the right direction, and it has to do with credit with you guys as coaches in those environments to create a positive environment. So
Yeah, I
that's
appreciate that. And I really believe with the new crop of players that are around and the ones that are coming up, I really feel in a couple years where when Weston McKinney, I think eh, he's a he's a 99 or two, he's a 98. He's
98.
born in 98.
98.
So he's 23 years old. When Weston is 25 and Pulisic is 25 and some of the other players, Sargent is younger. He's
Reina.
Reina. Some of these guys, when they mature a little bit more and they have a couple years under their belt in European football and in Champions League, I really feel our national team can compete with anyone. I really feel like in a couple years we will be able to compete with anyone. Now, people talk about when is the U.S. going to win the World Cup? Look, winning the World Cup is not as easy as we can say, hey, we have good players or we have the best players and we're going to win the World Cup. You look at Argentina. They export players all over the world. They have the best players in the world. They have the best player in the world, and they still can't win a World Cup. So winning a World Cup is not just, me snapping my finger and say we have the best players, we should win the World Cup. It comes down to the grouping that you get, in the preliminary rounds. Then it comes down to some luck when it gets to the penalty kicks or the knockout rounds. There's a lot that goes on, injuries that could happen within the World Cup, preparation, so much that goes on for a team to win the World Cup. So, but having said that, I feel like, more than any other time, we have a chance.
Yep.
If things fall, chips fall, where they may, or for us, where we want them to, we could go far in a World Cup. CONCACAF, for me now, regardless of what team the U.S. puts out there, we will win CONCACAF. I shouldn't say we will win. I shouldn't say we'll win CONCACAF because you still have Mexico, but we will qualify for the World Cup easily, no matter what team Greg Berhalter puts out there. Now, I don't want to make it sound like we can just step on the field and win games, but we have the quality now. We've surpassed, the Jamaicas and the Hondurases and some of these Central American countries, Costa Rica's, by far. We're head and shoulders above them with the players that we have at our disposal. So qualifying should be fairly easy. And then I feel like, in a couple of years, we really can play with anybody in the world.
No, it's really exciting. I think the game is growing. I think when we watch the game in the overall way, it's exciting to watch the game because in a lot of places, the coaching is growing, the education is growing, and that creates the youth to become better. I mean, that's how everyone becomes better is they have proper mentorships. What I want to kind of talk about now and close this out is we truly appreciate you coming on the show and really breaking down the topic of your perspective of style of play and system of play and kind of educating our audience of a point of view and how to adjust teams as coaches are hearing this and things to try out, taking risk, trying players in areas, experimenting with systems is so important because the more educated we are all around, the better our game becomes. And that's the most important thing. And I want to put the platform on your plate and kind of close us out in any projects you have going on, anything for the audience to be aware of, just so they can kind of get on to observe, to get better educated within the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as development, whether you're a player or you're a coach, you hit it on the head. We tell players, try different positions. As young players, when they're 10, 11, 12 years old, you put them in different positions so they can experiment that and come across different situations of the game in different areas of the field, and they become more well-rounded. As coaches, I feel we should be doing the same. I really believe as a coach, uh, for my team to have tactical flexibility. By that, I mean, look, we go into a game and we're playing, let's say we're playing a 4-3-3, and the other team is throwing something different at us and it's giving us a hard time. We should be able to adapt and right away change our system of play or our formation so that we can negate what they're succeeding in, what the other team is succeeding in. So to try different things and to get out of your comfort zone is just a tool to develop yourself further and further as a coach. Um, Not really. I'm really uh, very much engulfed in what I'm doing with Houston right now. So, and with the pandemic, it's very difficult. Not much going on as far as projects. I Besides coaching with the Houston Dynamo, I have created a training program for
Mm.
kids anywhere between 10 and 14 years old in Houston. And a couple times a week, we bring them in. There's probably about a group of 40 players that I've identified that are talented, that have a future in the game. And we set up an hour session with them, for different age groups at a time, couple days a week, and I work with them, and a lot of it has to do with game intelligence. We talk about Messi, Zlatan, and Cristiano Ronaldo, how they can still do it at such a late stage of their career. I believe it comes down to their game IQ and intelligence and efficiency in what they do. And my training sessions with those kids are based on these concepts. You know, how quickly can you receive a ball and get the ball out of your feet? Being efficient. Um, can you make a decision as to what you want to do with the ball before you get the ball? Those types of things. Not so much just putting cones down and having players dribble around cones, because anybody can do that. But really getting them to understand the game, to read the game, to develop a higher IQ for the game is my main goal.
No, fantastic. And again, truly appreciate it putting the time to get on the show, because I know your plate is full. Again, thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.